Hi, I'm Judy and welcome to my channel, Judy in the Kitchen. Are you wondering about getting a kitchen scale? Thinking, I'm not sure if I really need one or not. Well, I used to run a bakery and I've baked a lot. And kitchen scale is one of those things that I do suggest that you have in your kitchen. I don't often recommend a lot of kitchen gadgets and appliances, but this is one thing that I suggest you have, especially if you do a lot of baking, working with flour a lot. Here's why. When flour sits, whether it's in a bag or a bin, it tends to get compact. And depending upon how you measure your flour, you might have more flour than what you anticipate or less flour than what you're needing. Here's why. Here's an example. Let's say the flour's been just sitting in a bin and you just reach in and scoop it out with your scoop, level it off like we know we're supposed to, and pour it into your measuring bowl. You're going to have a pretty fair amount of flour in that measuring cup. Now the next person might come along with their bin and stir that flour up a little bit before they actually scoop it out and level it off. That second person is going to have less flour in that measuring cup than the first person did. Even though they measured out 1 cup, they're going to have 2 different amounts in that same cup. Now, when you multiply that times perhaps 3 cups of flour that you need in a recipe, you can have a fair amount of difference in the amount of flour that you're using. And if you wind up using more than the recipe calls for, more than is the writer of that recipe actually intended, your product might come out dry, dense. If you're making cookies, they might come out harder than you want and drier than you want. A bread might come out drier and more dense. If you're not using enough flour, a cookie may be kind of soft. A bread may not hold together very well. It might flop. So using a scale is a surefire way to make sure that you're getting the right amount of flour that you need. And here's what you do. This is a digital scale. And all you'll do is take your bowl that you're going to work with, put your flour in and all your other ingredients on the scale while it's turned off. And then you'll turn it on. And it's going to register 0. And when it registers 0, it's taken the weight of that bowl into consideration and zeroed everything out. So then all you need to do is scoop your flour in there with a spoon out of your bin or bag, whatever, and until you've got the right amount of flour that you need for your recipe, and then take your bowl, turn your scale off, and you've got it ready to go. You've got just the right amount of flour. You'll have a lot of uniformity in your baked goods that way. Now let's say you've got a mechanical scale, an analog one, it's not digital. What you'll need to do is put your bowl on the scale, and there will be a little dial or a knob probably on the back of it where you can calibrate the dial. And what you want to do is turn that knob until you bring the dial to 0. And what you're doing is taking the account of the weight of that bowl into there and zeroing it out so that you can add your flour in there and again get the right amount that you need. Now when I started my bakery, I carefully weighed the flour the way I normally would take it out of a bin several times. And for me, a cup of flour weighs on average 5 ounces. So when I wrote my recipes, I based it around 1 cup of flour weighing 5 ounces, and I would weigh my flour out every time. I might have been dealing with 20 or 25 pounds of flour at one time. So weighing was critical, because if you're measuring that much flour and you're not doing it uniformly, you might wind up with a whole lot more or a whole lot less flour than intended, and the recipe may not come out quite like you expect. Now, what are the other uses for a scale? A lot of recipes will call for nuts, and the standard rule of thumb is an ounce of nuts will fit comfortably in the palm of your hand. But some people have larger hands than others. And so what if you have big hands, or what if you have small hands? How do you judge what an ounce of nuts might truly be? Also, nuts come in different sizes and shapes. For instance, what if you're using whole almonds versus sliced almonds? the volume that fits in your hand might be quite different based on whether they're whole or whether they're sliced. And it's going to be hard to judge what an ounce really is. So if you use your scale, it's a foolproof way of knowing that you actually have an ounce of whatever nuts you're using. Also, if you mail some things and you've got a big, thick envelope or maybe a small box, you can weigh it on whatever scale you have and figure out what the weight of that is. Go online and you can determine what the postage is going to be when you get to the post office, or maybe you could do it online, get your postage online, or use your stamps and you'll know how many stamps to put on an envelope or a package. So scales are handy things to have. I suggest you have whatever you're comfortable with, whatever one you like. Make sure if it's a mechanical one that the dial is large enough that you can comfortably read, and you're good to go. This is Judy at Judy in the Kitchen. I hope this helps.